They say the quietest nights are the ones that end up changing everything. And let me tell you, nothing's ever as quiet as a Montana December right before someone decides to declare war over Christmas lights. That night, my barn still smelled of hay lanterns swinging in my hand from helping the kids rehearse carols. The valley should have been humming with the low laughter of neighbors, steam rising off cocoa, the kind of tradition that's older than any rulebook. But all I could hear was the crunch of tires on frozen gravel and the feeling bone deep that somebody out there just couldn't stand seeing folks happy on land they didn't control. White SUV, big bold HOA logo, lurches to a stop like it owns my place. Out steps Bethany Crowell, boots, polished clipboard tight to her chest like a sheriff's badge. She walks past every neighbor, doesn't look left or right, just raises a red folder and starts barking. This event is hereby declared unlawful. Fines under Section 14B of the Pine Ridge HOA Charter will be issued to anyone who stays. Nobody moved. I saw the Kowalski kids freeze breath puffing in the air, and old Mrs. Patterson with her hands trembling over a tray of cookies she'd spent her afternoon baking. 20 years we'd had this Christmas gathering. Not a blizzard, not a county official had ever stopped it. But now, we're supposed to back down because of a woman with a title and something to prove. I walked up slow calm as I could. "Evening, can I help you with something?" She pressed that folder against my chest, voice all edge, rattling off every fancy phrase she'd found: unlawful assembly, failure to obtain a seasonal event permit, hazard protocol. 6 pages of it. All except for the one word that actually mattered: jurisdiction. "This is private land, Bethany. Always has been." She stepped closer, said with a sneer, "The HOA has authority over all common areas. As president, I'm obligated to enforce safety standards." I caught Sarah's eye, my oldest friend sharp as they come arms crossed, eyebrow arched, as if to say, she can't be serious. Bethany didn't care about safety. She cared about control. I saw it in the way the neighbors shifted, how every gaze drifted from me, Guy, who'd lived here all his life, to her, who acted like the valley was just another box to check off. She slapped the folder, said, "This is your formal warning. If anyone gathers here tomorrow, police will be notified. Fines, liens. This tradition ends tonight." I could have told her about my grandfather's deed or how state law treats HOAs like seasoning never poured all over someone else's plate. I could have reminded her nobody here ever voted for her. Instead, I asked real soft, "What changed, Bethany? Why target this?" For just a second, I caught something in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or desperation, but she hit it quick. "Someone needs to keep this community in line," she snapped and drove away without another word, her threat trailing like the last snowstorm. Nobody wanted to be the first to leave. You could taste the shame the way everyone waited, hoping someone else would speak up. I looked at the kids clutching cocoa, the parents weighing risk against tradition, the old-timers remembering when problems got solved with a handshake instead of a citation. We're still having the gathering. Same as always. The relief was instant, but every person there knew Bethany didn't pick fights she didn't plan to win. Next morning, I stepped into my office, just an old tack room I'd wired up years back. Opened my laptop. First thing I saw, email from Bethany, subject line screaming, "Urgent request for police intervention, criminal holiday conspiracy." 6 pages of complaints more dramatic than a soap opera, accusing me by address of everything short of treason. She even scribbled at the bottom, "Mayor, these people must be controlled." What she didn't know was that every complaint she filed landed right on my desk. I was mayor had been for over a year, keeping it quiet, so I could live simple, listen to my neighbors, and not become a target for exactly this kind of power play. Sarah brought coffee, read the letter, jaw set. "She's been filing these with the mayor's office, and she thinks the mayor is not me." We dug through the records. Dozens of letters. Complaints about unregulated child activity, joy hazards, even a request to ban gatherings creating unmonitored happiness. Bethany wasn't just documenting events, she was trying to create a crisis, inventing a paper trail so thick she could choke the valley with it. One detail finally gave away her game, a financial consultant's name at the bottom of an email, Marcus Hale. notorious for pressuring HOAs to squeeze landowners, then swooping in to buy at rock bottom. If he was involved, this wasn't about lights or cookies, it was about leverage and land. That day, HOA volunteers showed up in neon vests, acting like a SWAT team, cones and measuring tapes at the ready. "You're trespassing," I said, "but they played dumb," said Bethany, ordered an inspection. Sarah called the sheriff. Deputy Jake Morales, a friend, showed up in 10 minutes, took one look and told them to clear out. But the threats kept coming: fines for decorations, warnings about reckless snow activity, letters saying caroling could trigger intervention services for kids. Bethany was escalating, trying to make us all scared enough to do what she wanted. Marcus, I figured, was just waiting for enough families to get scared and sell. When the county snowplow came by and said, "We're told not to plow this road," HOA claims they control it this season, I knew Bethany wasn't just bluffing. If she could convince the county she ran the road, she could control access, deliveries, even emergencies. And all she needed was a fake crisis. That night I dug up every email, every filing, every threat. She'd sent so many she'd stopped even pretending to hide her intent. One line jumped out: "If the rancher remains non-compliant, escalate to Valley Event Corridor shutdown." She was renaming the land, making up authority. By morning, Sarah had found the smoking gun, a forged map Bethany had filed with the county. Red boundaries, false easements, the whole 9 yards. We showed the county assessor my grandfather's deed, and you could see him realize he'd almost been tricked into redrawing history. Bethany didn't stop. She rerouted our mail, sent fake invoices, forged my signature to try to cut the power, and with Marcus in her corner, even tried to buy me out. She'd padlocked mailboxes, filed complaints, even impersonated a municipal official on utility forms. Jake, the sheriff, warned us she was pushing for a full lockdown. Her business license expired nearly 3 years back. Everything she'd done illegal, null void. We decided to let her overreach, to document it all, to make sure when she fell it would be public, undeniable, and final. The Attorney General's office sent an investigator. Bethany received her notice on the porch face, pale as the snow. She called an emergency HOA meeting, tried to rally support, but Mrs. Patterson brought out the founding charter: no major enforcement without community consent. For the first time, the neighbors pushed back. Bethany panicked, ranted, and when she pointed at my ranch screaming, "I was the enemy," the crowd just stared. Someone finally asked Bethany, "What makes you think the Carter Ranch is the enemy?" She had no answer. Christmas Eve came. The barn filled with families, lights, music, laughter. Bethany showed up with her volunteer's megaphone in hand, demanding we disperse. She crossed onto my land, and that was all we needed. Sarah handed the original deed to one of her volunteers. Private land. Always has been. I showed my mayor's badge. "You filed every one of your complaints to me, Bethany. You forged my signature. You threatened your own neighbors." Jake stepped in. "You're under investigation for fraudulent HOA practices, harassment, forgery, and filing false reports." Bethany tried to run, but she didn't get far. The deputies cuffed her, led her away as neighbors watched in stunned silence, then finally clapped relief, flooding the valley. For months she'd ruled with fear. In a moment it all vanished. As the party started, kids laughing, parents hugging, Mrs. Patterson pressed a tin of cookies into my hands, voice trembling. "For saving the valley, for standing with it," I replied. That night, Sarah brought the last envelope: Pine Ridge HOA dissolved, Carter Ranch exempt for good. I kept my grandfather's promise. The valley would never be run by fear, not by paperwork, not by outsiders, not by anybody who didn't love this land. And as folks drifted home, lanterns flickering in the snowy dark, I thought about the lesson buried in all this chaos. Power doesn't come from paperwork or titles. It comes from standing up together, refusing to let fear decide what's possible. Justice, when it finally comes, is quiet neighbors walking home in peace, kids singing again, tradition restored not by force, but by community. So, where's the line for you? When does defending your home turn into a necessity? Have you ever stared down someone who wanted to run your life? Drop a justice in the comments, share your story, and if these kinds of tales speak to you, stick around. Because out here, justice isn't just a story. It's the way we keep this valley free.